arm, forearm, and the hand in the gluteal region, thigh, legs and foot. So these are have seen in the whole body. These muscles are seen in only heart, as the name indicate, cardia, heart, and the initial part of the inferior vena cava and the superior vena cava. These muscles, the smooth muscles, are seen in the GIT, urogenital system, respiratory system, and the blood vessels. The third criteria is the control. The skeletal muscles are under voluntary control. These muscles are involuntary, and these muscles are also involuntary. So these muscles, that is cardiac muscle and smooth muscle, are also known as the involuntary muscles. On the other hand, the skeletal muscles are under voluntary control, so these are known as the voluntary muscle, as I have already told. The other criteria or the other feature which is different in all three types of muscles is the muscle fiber. The muscle fiber in case of skeletal muscle are cylindrical and long. Fiber. Muscle fiber is the structural unit of the muscle. Functional unit of the muscle, especially the skeletal muscle, is the motor neuron, which is having a fiber, muscle fiber, and a nerve which is supplying the fiber. So the fiber, here the fibers are the cylindrical and long. Here the fibers are cylindrical and branched and short. Cylindrical, branched and the short. These are having the intercalated disc where two cylindrical fibers are meeting, are known as intercalated disc. So note it down. The cardiac muscles are having intercalated disc, the branching, and the intercalated disc are seen only in cardiac muscles. The fibers in the smooth muscles are spindle shaped like this. So I will explain the arrangement of fibers in all three types to make this concept more clear. When you see in microscope, if you are a medical professional, you can see the section of all three types of muscles. Here you can see the parallel arrangement of the cylindrical fiber. Here you can see the branched fiber having the branching, and the fibers are arranged in branches and having contact with the adjacent fibers. And in case of smooth muscles, they are having the spindle shaped muscle fiber, this is the basic arrangement of fibers in all three types of muscles. Here you can see the cross striations like this. You can see the multiple nuclei in a single muscle fiber or the myocyte in case of skeletal muscle. So these fibers or muscle fibers are having the peripherally placed multiple ovoid nuclei in case of the skeletal muscles. But in case of the cardiac muscles, these are also striated muscles, but striations are not very clearly visible in the electron and light microscope. But these are also having the same pattern of the skeletal muscles, but here you can notice the lightly visible striations. So this is the pattern of the transverse striations in the cardiac muscles. One more difference. Here the nuclei is central and single nucleus is seen in a single muscle fiber. And this nucleus is round, not ovoid. And the muscle fibers are short, these are not long. Here the fibers may be up to 30 to 60 centimeter. In small muscles they may be from 1 millimeter up to 300 millimeter generally, but the fibers may be up to 600 millimeter, that is up to 60 centimeter in case of skeletal muscles, up to 600 millimeter, that is the 60 centimeter. But here the fibers are short and fibers are joining the neighboring fibers at the intercalated disc areas. So you can see the intercalated disc areas in the cardiac muscles or in the myocardium. Here the picture is quite different. The muscle fibers are not cylindrical. These are spindle shaped, having single central round nuclei. The other difference in between these skeletal, cardiac and the smooth muscle is the rhythmicity. These muscles can't generate the rhythmicity or the rhythm. On the other hand, these muscles are well known for their rhythmic movements or the rhythmicity. These muscles are also having the rhythmicity. These muscles are having, the cardiac muscles are having the specially modified muscle fibers which are arranged and located in a specified area of the heart near the superior vena cava and between the junction of the atrium and the ventricle. In detail, I will talk about these spatial centers and cardiac muscles in my lecture on ECG and in my lecture on the gross anatomy of the heart and the microanatomy of cardiac muscles. So these especially and specific areas which can generate spontaneous rhythms are known as the SA node, sinus node, and AV node, atrioventricular node. These specified areas of the heart can generate rhythm spontaneously. So these muscles are having characteristic feature of autorhythmicity. These smooth muscles can also generate rhythm, but these muscles are not capable of generating the rhythm or rhythmicity. The nerve supply, when I talk about the nerve supply of all three muscles, these muscles, the skeletal muscles, are supplied by the motor nerves. Motor nerves are coming through the cranial nerves, especially when we will talk about the cranial nerves. You will see the third, fourth, sixth and 12th cranial nerve are pure motor nerve and supplying the skeletal muscles of the head and neck region. And there are some special motor nerves known as brachiomotor, and these are having the special visceral efferent fibers are innervating the muscles which develop from the branchial arches or the pharyngeal arches. So these muscles are supplied by the motor nerves of the head and neck, from the cranial nerves, and the skeletal muscles of the trunk, upper limbs and lower limbs are supplied by the 31 pairs of the spinal nerves by their anterior horn. These muscles, cardiac muscles, are supplied by the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system, which is having the postganglionic sympathetic and the postganglionic parasympathetic fibers, which are coming from the parasympathetic is coming from the brain, that is the vagus nerve, and the preganglionic fibers of the sympathetic are coming from the thoracic outflow of the sympathetic chain. So these are supplied by the autonomic nervous system. These smooth muscles are also supplied by the autonomic nervous system, that is the postganglionic sympathetic and the postganglionic parasympathetic from the craniosacral outflow in case of parasympathetic and the thoracolumbar outflow in case of the sympathetic nervous supply. So this is also a major difference in the nerve supply of the all three muscles. Besides all these differences, the stretch receptors are seen only in the skeletal muscles. So one more difference, the stretch receptors are seen in the skeletal muscles but absent in smooth muscles and the cardiac muscles. Neuromuscular junction. Synapses are seen between two nerves. Either it may be in the axon and somoid, axon and soma, axon and axon between the two neurons. But in case of the skeletal muscle, the nerve fiber which is supplying the muscle fiber is forming a junction. This is known as the neuromuscular junction. So neuromuscular junction NMJ is seen in the skeletal muscles, but it is not seen in the cardiac muscles and in the smooth muscles. I am talking about the muscles of the body, but when I say the muscle, I am talking about the skeletal muscle. When I use this word muscle, it makes a picture in my mind of the skeletal muscles. The muscle, this is muscle. In detail of cardiac muscle, I will talk in my lecture on the cardiovascular system and in the lecture of the electrocardiogram. In detail of smooth muscle, I will enter during my lecture on gastrointestinal system and during my lecture on the respiratory and urogenital system. In this lecture, I will talk about the skeletal muscles of the human body. So this lecture is for the skeletal muscles, and in detail of cardiac and smooth muscles there are separate lectures on their respective organs. So skeletal muscle is made up of two types of cells. Skeletal muscle is made up of two types of cells or two types of tissues. It is having two types of tissues. One is muscle tissue proper, or also known as the contractile tissue, and the other is the supporting tissue, which is the connective tissue forming the covering of the muscle fiber, covering of the bundle of the muscle fiber, and the covering of the whole muscle known as endomysium, perimysium and epimysium. And the connective tissue, the blood vessels, and the nerve fiber. So the skeletal muscle is having the muscle tissue proper, which is formed by the muscle fiber, myocyte or muscle cell, also known as muscle fiber, and the supporting tissue is having the connective tissue, which is for the support of the muscle fiber and to provide a route for the entry and the protection of the blood vessels and the nerve fiber. So muscle is formed by two types of tissues. First I will talk about the muscle tissue proper or the contractile tissue proper. I will talk about the skeletal muscle. This is the arm, here is the forearm. It is having the powerful flexor muscle known as biceps and powerful extensor muscle known as triceps. I will draw a section from this muscle. When we see the cross section of the muscle, we will see the bundles or fasciculus of the muscles arranged like this. So this muscle is covered by a tough fibrous sheath of connective tissue known as epimysium. This bundle or fasciculus of the muscle fiber is made up of many muscle cells. This is again having many muscle fibers which are encircled by a coarse layer of connective tissue. This is the enlarged section of a muscle fasciculus or also known as myoneem. N-E-M, myonemes or fasciculus. This fasciculus or myoneem is covered by a coarse connective tissue layer known as perimysium. So it is covered by a coarse connective tissue layer known as perimysium. Again, this fasciculus or myoneem is having hundreds of muscle fibers or muscle cells or muscle or myocytes. These are held together by this perimysium, and a single muscle fiber is covered by a thin, delicate sheet of connective tissue. It is encircled by a delicate layer of connective tissue known as endomysium. So, listen again. The muscle is made up of collection of many bundles or fasciculars or myonemes, which are covered by a thick fibrous sheath, tough thick fibrous sheath known as epimysium, and this muscle is having many fasciculars or myonemes, which are formed by collection of many muscle fibers or myocytes or muscle cells, which are covered by this perimysium, and there are many muscle fibers which is single muscle fiber is covered by a thin delicate layer of connective tissue known as endomysium. So there are three types of layers at different levels of the sections of the muscles. Whole muscles is covered by the epimysium, fasciculus or myoneme is covered by the perimysium, and a single muscle fiber is covered by the endomysium. When the muscle taper to form a thin part known as tendon, when it is tendon, a muscle, when this muscle taper in one end, when this is round, this is the belly of the muscle, fleshy part, belly or body of the muscle. This thin part, which is non-contractile and formed by the collagen fibers or other fibers, is known as tendon when this is round in cross section. But when this is sheath-like, especially seen in flat muscles of abdomen, this is known as aponeurosis. These all coverings of the muscle proper, the fasciculus and muscle fiber, are when the muscle is tapered to form a tendon. These all coverings of the muscle, the fasciculus and the endomysium fused together. These are fused together with the tendon, and there is interlacing of the epimysium, perimysium and endomysium. So finally, this is forming the tendon of the muscle. A muscle fiber, a myocyte or a muscle cell, which is the structural unit of the muscle, is having hundreds of microfilaments, myofibrils. It is having longitudinally arranged myofibrils, which are again formed by the microfilaments or myofilaments, which are formed by the actin, myosin, tropomyosin and troponin. These are contractile units of the muscle fiber, which are having the alternate light and dark bands, anisotropic and isotropic bands, forming the microscopic structure of the muscle. After a break, I will talk about the microscopic structure of the muscle, the nerve supply of the muscle, the supporting tissue of the muscle, the classification of the muscles, and the criteria of the classification of the muscles.